વેધર એ થોડુંક ઓડ છે ને.
હા, વેધર પણ થોડું ઓડ છે. શું આરાધના ચાલે છે હમણાં તમારી?
સોરી.
શું આરાધના ચાલે છે હમણાં ચોમાસામાં?
ચોમાસામાં હાલ તો નથી. ઘરે મમ્મી ને બધાને ચાલે છે. મારે વિચાર છે કઈક મોટું તપ કરવું છે.
ઓકે.
આ ચોમાસામાં મારા
હમ.
જે ગુરુદેવ છે એ બરોડા છે. તો બરોડા
અચ્છા,
જોઈન
બાજુમાં
કરું.
જ છે.
બરોડા જોઈન કરવું કે અહિયાં કરવું કઈ જો ડિસાઈડ કરું.
પ્રેફરેબલી ત્યાં જઈને જ કરો ને. બેટર
હમ
છે.
વિચાર તો એવો જ છે. પણ એ કેવું છે મીન્સ ઓફિસ ને બધું ચાલુ હોય 10-15 દિવસ તો ગેપ સમજી લેવાનો ઓછામાં ઓછો.
રાઈટ રાઈટ.
એ બધું લોજિક ડેટ સેટ કરવી પડશે ખાલી વેકેશન આવતું હોય.
હમ.
દિવાળી એવું તો સેટ કરી દઈએ તો ઓછું વર્ક ઓછું બગડે.
રાઈટ રાઈટ. પ્રણામ મનોજભાઈ.
પ્રણામ પાર્શ્વભાઈ.
પ્રણામ મનોજભાઈ.
પ્રણામ.
વેઇટ કરીએ કે સ્ટાર્ટ કરી દઈએ?
કરીએ ને વેટ 305 સુધી કરીએ.
ઓકે.
आप सब साता में?
देव गुरु प्रसाद. आप साथ में हो?
देव गुरु प्रसाद.
What's happening?
I'm mostly doing Ekashna.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I started with Upas and Vyasna, but then I switched to Ekashnas. It's been
Oh
a week.
wow.
Yeah, every day or every other day?
Ekashna every day.
Wow,
Nice.
Manoj bhai. That's actually pretty good.
Yeah. One of the perks of moving to India always is easier to do. It's mostly work from home, so it's so far it's going good.
Right, makes sense. Pranam Ankit bhai. Let's wait for one more minute and then begin, I believe.
Sure.
Okay, let's begin now. Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Uvajjayanam, Namo Loe Savva Sahunam, Eso Pancha Namukaro, Savva Pava Pranasano, Mangalanam Chasavesam, Padamam Havai Mangalam, Namo Jarvara Ragadi Vairivara Nivarine, Arhate Yoganathaya Mahavira Yatayane, Pannage Cha Surendre Cha Kaushike Pad Sanspushe, Nirvishesha Manaskaya Shri Veera Swamine Namo. पैचौमाससमुच्चय नियमगहो पौसे विशेषेण in the Shasan of Sri Harihan Paramatmas, after the creation of the Dvadashangi and the passing of the delegation of duties from one generation of Gandhar Bhagwans to the next generation of Gachadipati Acharya Bhagwans, several Mahatmas starting from Purvadhar Bhagwans, and with the passage of time, uh, Atishay Shrutagyani Mahatmas created basis the agams and the scriptures of the Purvadars, several other scriptures made in accordance with these previous scriptures in order to simplify the marg for us and in order to give us necessary directions, keeping in mind the desh and kal of the current state that we're in. Of these grants, several grants contain directions for what is to be done for Shraman Bhagwans. Several grants contain directions for both Shraman Bhagwans and Sadhu Bhagwans. Several grants contain directions, guidelines for Shravaks exclusively. In the second category, there are grants like Dharma Sangraha or Panchashak Prakaran, wherein the first half, is dedicated to explaining various facets of Shravak Dharma, and the second part is dedicated to explaining various facets of Yati Dharma, that is Sadhu Dharma. In the first category, there are grants like Yati Dincharya, Pinda Niryukti, Og Niryukti, and the majority of agams, which specify the charya or the code of conduct for Mahatmas, starting right from the first Angagam, Shri Acharang Sutra. And then there are grants in the third category which exclusively give guidance on how a Shravak is supposed to live life. Shri Shraddhavadhi Prakaran is one of the most popular grants fitting into this category. This granth covers various aspects of a Shravak's life, and it is a must read for a Shravak. There are various sections as part of it. The first deals with what a Shravak should do throughout the day. The second deals with what a Shravak should do throughout the night. How he should go to bed, how he should sleep, what should he do if he wakes up in the middle of sleep. There are specific directions for a Shravak on the days of Parvas, that is Parvatithis, Beach Pacham, Atham, Agyaras, Chaudas, Poonam of the first half of the month, and Beach Pacham, Atham, Agyaras, Chaudas, and Amas or Amavasya in the second half of the month, thus making a total of 12 Parvatithis. And additionally, Kalyanaks of the 24 Tirthankar Paramatmas. So the third section talks of Parva Kritya, what a Shravak should do during these Parvatithis. The fourth section deals with what a Shravak should do during Chaturmas. And this is what we're concerned with because it's been a week, exactly a week since the Chaturmas is set. Like we saw earlier, the year is divided into. Manoj bhai, do you mean the name of the Granth? Oh, right, sorry. The Granth is Shraddhavidhi Prakaran. It's been translated into Hindi and English both, and it's an excellent Granth. Uh, so the fourth Prakash or the fourth section of the Granth is Chaturmasik Kritya. Here, Chaturmas, like we saw earlier, literally means 4 months. But the Chaturmas that is specifically spoken about is the Varshakal Chaturmas, that is the 4 months of monsoons. Now, if you see the number of days in each Chaturmas are more or less the same. Each of them have 120 days. And yet, this particular period of 120 days, which falls in the monsoon, has been given more importance. Even when we look at the Charitra Granths of Tirthankar Paramatmas or those of Acharya Bhagwans, what we often find in their records is where they spent their Chaturmas. And it is on the basis of that we can imply or infer that, oh, perhaps it is because so and so Mahatma or so and so Bhagwan did Chaturmas in this area, that the population of this particular region attained dharma, or traces of dharma can still be seen in this particular region, as opposed to Mahatmas or Tirthankar Paramatmas going to a certain place but not doing Chaturmas there. And the reason behind this is known to all of us. In the Agams, barring exceptional conditions, Sadhu Bhagwans are mandated to do Navkalpi Vihar. Navkalpi is a ninefold system of Vihar. I'm sure everyone knows what Vihar is. Now, as part of this system, a Mahatma spends 1 month in one place, and thus 8 months in 8 different places, respectively. And the ninth part is Chaturmas Kalp, wherein a Mahatma spends 4 months in one place. Such a beautiful system of doing Vihar ensures that, on the one hand, Mahatmas are able to practice their Sanyam, because if Mahatmas were to do long, long, long Vihars their entire life without ever pausing anywhere in villages, cities, towns, etc., their Sanyam, their Swadhyay, all of that will get affected. And on the other hand, if they stay in one place for too long, it would lead to excessive contact with the householders, with the lay population, which is also not good for Mahatmas, because the scriptures say that the life of a householder is like that of a burning ball of iron. If there's a burning ball of iron that goes anywhere, it's going to cause damage and destruction wherever it goes. And thus, unless strictly necessary, Mahatmas prefer staying away from the contact of householders. Now, one thing that we do not see practiced strictly today is also this very concept of Navkalpi Vihar, because there are so many events happening in every Mahatma's life, more or less, that to go from one place to the other, one has to undertake long, long vihars, and this often results in, uh, it often results in many small towns, villages, cities, etc., not getting an adequate number of Muni Bhagwans, because of which Dharma also, the Dharma Shasan and the Shravaks belonging to this Dharma Shasan also incur a lot of detriment. This is not to say that the fault is only of the Mahatmas, the fault is also ours, because our expectations from Mahatmas are totally different. And this is very evident from, whenever we go to any particular Sangh and we see when a Mahatma is supposed to come for Chaturmas, the expectations that the local population or the trustees, usually speaking on behalf of the local population of that Sangh, the expectations that they make are totally ridiculous and nothing that a Sadhu Bhagwan would usually comply with. So the fault is on both parts, and we can only hope that by understanding the Marg, we can also mend our ways, and we can ensure that the Sanyam of Mahatmas can be maintained without any atichar, while ensuring that their nishra also benefits us and helps us in attaining and in increasing our darshan and charitra. Here in Sri Shraddhavati Prakaran, while talking of Chaturmasik Kritya, the first thing that Sri Ratnashekhar Sureshwari Maharaja, the author of this Granth, says is Prati Chaturmasam Samuchita Niyama Graha Pravrushi Visheshena. in every Chaturmas, in every 4 months, a Shravak should take specialized niyams, specialized vows. Generally, when we say the word Shravak, we understand it in the sense of a Deshvirti Samyak Drashti. So not only does that person have Samyak Darshan, but he also has niyams supporting his Samyak Darshan. Or if you look at it the other way, in the words of Upadhyaji Maharaja, Tani Avere Samakita Viratine Ejana Shasana Marma. Samkit or Samyak Darshan is so powerful that it naturally brings a sense of self restraint in one's life. It naturally, once you understand that what the qualities that we have within are important, you would naturally want to raise huge barriers to ensure that no one can break through these qualities, or that you don't feel like creating a hole and ensuring that impurities come in. Those who see this as a sort of bondage, as a sort of confinement, have failed to appreciate the very essence of the shasan. Wherever you go in the shasan, there is there is always going to be talk of tyag. So for those who are finding ways to nourish themselves by way of dharma, this shasan will not support them in any way whatsoever. Now I come to the before we delve into this, Abhishek had asked a question just a while ago. What are the things that we can eat on Atham, Pacham, and Chaudas? Now, of the 12 Parvatithis, which I mentioned earlier, a Shravak should not, definitely not consume Lilotri. That is, and we'll come to that, on any of the 12 Parvatithis. In the event that he absolutely cannot stay without them, then he must ensure that he does not eat them at least on 10. And even if he can't even do that, then he must ensure that he does not consume them at least on 5 Parvatithis in a month. That is uh, Pacham, Sud Pacham, Atham, and Atham of both halves of the month, and the Pakshik days, that is Pakis. So in these 5 days are the bare minimum that a Shravak slash should have. As to what a person can eat during these Parvatithis, Jain Shasan absolutely does not care in giving you a positive prescription that you can eat this, you can eat that. This Shasan is only concerned with ensuring that you do tyag of as much food as is possible. And in suggesting that tyag, it says that look, any kind of vegetables or fruits that you have are going to cause extreme asakti, because fruits and vegetables, like we naturally know, they have a lot of uh, they're fleshy and they're juicy, and because of that, when you have them uh, in their hydrated form, I'm not talking of the dehydrated form, when you have them in their hydrated form, it's going to cause a sense of enjoyment in your meal. And this is very understandable, because it does not even require a lot of philosophical explanation, because this is anubhav siddh. One can experience this by themselves. The uh, an ordinary person who, say, just by way of because this is the system in the family, say if they eat on a particular on a non parvatithi day, the food that they have and the food that they would otherwise have on parvatithis, one is naturally bound to experience more enjoyment, a sense of pleasure and indulgence when they're having foods that are not uh, you know uh, that basically include vegetables and fruits. Now, even, and this is the least that the Shastrakar Bhagavans say is to be done. So that does not mean that other abhaksha things such as chocolates, ice cream, which cannot be had even otherwise, can be permitted on these days. So it's very important to understand the marg here. The reason behind eating or not eating these things is to ensure that our asakti gets reduced at least on these days, because these days come with a high chance of Ayushya of the next birth happening. This Ayushya happens only once in a year, but and we don't know when exactly it'll happen. But statistically speaking, it happens on every third Parvatithi, which is why on these 12 parvatis, tatis at least, one must be excessively careful. So, rag and dvesh come from various sides. Food is one of them. And so, while a person should not indulge in eating lilotri on these days, that doesn't mean that the other dose of, the other dose of pap karma to flow in, the other dose of ashrav are open. That does not mean that other activities such as, entertaining yourself by watching a movie or whatsoever, or any other possible door of ashrav should be kept open. Anyway, a shravak's life, generally speaking, is one that is filled with, various self-imposed measures to cut down on existing karma and to block new karma from entering. A shravak's life is thus filled with samvar and nijra in a way that this samvar and nijra keep on increasing till a point that the shravak is able to renounce everything and practice the sarvavarti dharma. So here Ratnashekar Saraswati Maharaja says that a shravak who has taken parigraha pariman vrat, that is a shravak who has limited his parigraha. We all know that this parigraha pariman vrat is the fifth vrat of the 12 vrats a shravak takes. Parigraha is classified into 9 categories in the scriptures, 9 broad categories. But and these broad categories can be expanded to include any and everything that would classify as parigraha in the current age. So a shravak who has taken parigraha pariman vrat on a general basis in every chaumasa, he ensures that the the limit that he has set for himself, he keeps on reducing that limit. As in, he keeps on reducing his parigraha. He keeps on making it more and more, rigid, so as to ensure that there is, and this is something that happens naturally because by way of following this dharma, and we saw this in the Panchasutra, the second sutra of Sri Panchasutra, wherein a Shravak practices his Deshvarti Dharma so well that every morning when he wakes up, he feels that, oh, today I feel better than yesterday. And the next day he says, oh, I feel better than today. Because every day he wakes up, he realizes that the parinam, the parinati that he has is getting more and more refined. So naturally, every 4 months, a Shravak, he makes his niyams even more stringent. And then Acharya Bhagwan says that especially in the Varsha Kal Chaumasa, he should definitely take appropriate niyams. Now, niyams or vows are to do with kriya, and kriya is something that is intrinsically linked with our bhav. A lot of people are of the opinion that until the right bhav in a particular kriya is blended, we should not engage in that particular kriya. But this this very statement, has been refuted ample times in the Jain Shasan, and the Jain Shasan is not a believer in the fact that you wait for the right bhav to come and then do the kriya, because if you wait for it to happen, it's never going to happen in most cases. The way to go about it is to actually start doing the kriya first while practicing the attainment of that bhav, so that one day that bhav is attained and then it becomes more and more refined. And this is seen even in even in our practical life. In our practical life, if you just keep on having great ambitions without actually starting to work on it, no matter how imperfect it is, nothing's actually going to materialize. So when in our practical life and in our laukik life, we are able to think so clearly, the lack of clarity, or the denial that people have in context of dharma is rather astounding. uh, Even if a shravak were to limit by default, say even if a shravak were to say a shravak's income is only 1 lakh rupees a month, and he knows that it could be lesser but it could never be more, such a shravak, even if he takes the niyam, even if he does, so consider a scenario where he doesn't take the niyam, and consider a scenario where he does. In both cases, his income is the same. And so, if one is to not apply their mind, it would simply appear that, oh, in either cases, there's not going to be much of a difference because this Shravak is not, he's anyway not in possession of so much wealth. This is discussed in Shraddhavati too. uh, Ratnashekar Saraswati Maharaj says that you should take a niyam that uh, at an appropriate time, such that it yields great fruit, and the absence of which would lead to great viradhana. In context of the monsoons, he specifically says that, unnecessarily driving or using vehicles, or consuming fruits that could contain worms or insects such as mangoes, etc., renouncing all of these activities are examples of appropriate niyams to take in the Chaturmas. Similarly, not transgressing the boundaries of your area or your city or your village, and keeping niyams appropriate to your age, your race, your family, etc., your occupation. All of these, auchitya has to be exercised. You have to apply your mind, apply your vivek, and then take a call. So, in context of our example, where there are two Shravaks who have 1 lakh rupees each, one takes a niyam of not having any more parigraha than 1 lakh rupees in a month, and the other Shravak doesn't take a parigraha, but he's of the opinion that it's not going to make a difference anyway. So, what's the rationale? And the Shastrakar Bhagans say in reply to this that when you do any particular activity, and even if you do it on a daily basis, when you do a particular activity with an abhigraha, that particular activity becomes more refined because your bhav in that activity becomes akhand by way of parigraha. It can never be fragmented because the moment you take up any abhigraha, any vow, any resolution, you are essentially doing a very strong pranidhan in your atma that no matter what, I am going to do this. So the intensity of the bhav that you would experience in that kriya would be greater than ever. See, many of us present on the call right now, we probably do puja every day. But how many of us do puja with an abhigraha that, oh, I am going to do puja every day, no matter what happens? So, this applies for any dharma kriya. When you do it with an abhigraha that if I don't do this, I will give up this, or I have to do this no matter what, that abhigraha, when taken in appropriate situations from appropriate persons by an appropriate person, it yields tremendous karma nitra. And the same activity, or perhaps an even better activity in terms of its practice, which lacks an abhigraha, won't yield that much that much fruit. These niyams can be of two types. Some of them can be easy to practice, whereas some of them could be difficult to practice. And keeping in mind that Shraddhavati is for Shravaks, and the Shravak and the life of a householder primarily uh, rests on money or income, the bifurcation of these niyams is made by is made by the Shastrakar Bhagavant on the basis of money itself. So the Shraddhavatikar says that for a person who is uh, who is very wealthy, and because of his wealth he is excessively indulgent and thus he is a virat. For people like them, giving up all sachit foods altogether and giving up all lilotri altogether for these 4 months, and practicing samayik every day at least for these 4 months, all of these niyams are very difficult for them. But on the other hand, if you look at niyams like doing puja every day, giving dan every day, all of these niyams are very easy to practice for them. In saying this, the Shastrakar Bhagavans also say that if you look at this in terms of utkrishtata of niyams, the best possible solution, one of the best possible solutions for a Shravak in the Chaturmas is to give up all Lilotri altogether for 4 months. Because already there is so much Viradna happening all around us. In addition to that, even in our food, when we consume Lilotri on a daily basis, it is going to cause excessive gruddhi, excessive indulgence. On the other hand, people who are relatively poor or not so well off, they might be they might be able to give up on such foods, etc., easily, because they anyway don't have the resources to indulge in the best of bhog, and for them doing samayik, etc., might be easier. On the other hand, doing puja with swadrava every day might not be possible for really poor people. Giving dan might not be might not be very easy for poor people. So Shastra Bhagwans show both sides. And now this is not a strict bifurcation, and he himself specifies this. He says that, but even then, when one is truly focused, when one has concentration of the mind, then even Chakravartis like Bharat Chakravarti, Sanat Kumar Chakravarti, etc., and even extremely wealthy people like Shalabhadra, Dhannaji, etc., all of these people also renounced everything and they took Diksha and they endured a lot of physical suffering. And thus, uh, it is not a strict bifurcation that, oh, wealthy people certainly can't do this. It's just a general state of things, and you can also put this to test by way of what we see today in front of us. If you look at the population of the people who engage in the first category of niyams, and the population who engage in the second category of niyams, by and large, not strictly speaking, by and large, we can see this differentiation. So uh, the Shraddhavadikar also reminds us of how we should keep ideals of Sri Krishna Maharaja, Kumarpal Maharaja in mind, and not step out of our immediate surroundings, or at most outside our city, for any reason whatsoever. Here, Hetvi had earlier asked if one can ascend Sri Shatrunjay Mahatirth in the Chaturmas. She isn't here right now, but we'll just have a clarification. Perhaps you can listen to it later. Uh, the niyam for a Shravak is by Utsarg not to step out of their city at most during Chaturmas, come what may. So a Shravak also sets up his business in such a way that, ordinarily he wouldn't have to travel from one place to the other, or if he otherwise has to, he ensures that at least during these months, he's able to live without transgressing the boundaries of his city. The reason for this is very simple. It's the avoidance of excessive Jeev Varadna. Now, in the event that a Shravak does not follow this, and we're not looking at this in terms of an upvadik situation. The marg is not to go out. But say a Shravak does go out, then the marg for him is different, in terms of the fact that if a Shravak is otherwise traveling for business or for leisure or for any other purpose to different places in the country or in the world, he is, and in most cases, Shravaks anyway go to visit their Guru Bhagwans, their, Upkari Sadhu Sadhiji Bhagwans during the Chaturmas. And the same applies also for Guru Bhagwans who are staying in Shatrunjay Mahatirth or Samyet Shikhar or Girnar or any other hilly terrain, since that seems to be the cause of the issue here. And say, as a I as a Shravak, I'm traveling from Bombay to Shatrunjay, to the town of Palatana, or to Junagadh, or to Parasnath. The Viradhana that I'm going to cause is tremendous. Once again, I reiterate that the marg is not to go at all in the first place. But say you are otherwise traveling, so you don't have that paranam of, n- avoiding Viradhana otherwise as well. So you end up going to these places. And when you go to these places, the Viradhana that you've already incurred, clearly your mind is not in a state to feel that, because your paranam haven't reached that level. So when and we all know that niyams are based on the basis of paranam. So in such a scenario, if a shravak were to go as far as the taleti and he were to go up, then there is no prohibition on him in this regard in the scriptures at all. The marg for sadhu bhagwans is different, because if there is nigod, etc., on the way, even if they are going from One, even if they are staying, say, in a place like Bombay, and the closest Janala for them, there's only one path that leads to it, and that path is filled with Nigod. The mark for them would ordinarily be not to go to the Janala at all. Whereas for us, and say similarly, if it were raining heavily, the Utsarg Marg is for Sadhu Saji Bhagwans is not to step out at all. But for Shravaks who are already in a state of aviriti and where they don't have niyams like these, uh, and this is not in context of traveling in Chaturmas, say in a particular city itself, in my locality, because I'm already engaged in the Aram Samaram of Prithvi up Teu Vaukai Vanasvatik and to a limited extent Traskai, there is no prohibition on me to not go to the Janalay under the excuse that oh it's raining or oh there is Nigod, because your parinam at that particular point, it's it's psychologically impossible to conceive that only when this happens your parinam suddenly become very compassionate and you're like, oh, there's so much Jeevaradna, how can I do this now? So extend the same principle, and the same principle also applies for all of these tears situated on, atop hills or tears which are themselves hills. So it's not very difficult to understand. In in addition to that, there are also several Shastri examples that can be kept in mind. Uh, Heer Sri Maharaja, who was one of the Pattadhars in the parampara of Mahavaswami Bhagwan, who was Akbar's mentor and had a great and unforgettable influence on Akbar by making him extremely compassionate and sensitive, at least to Panchendriya Jeeves. This Mahatma has done Pratishtha on Shatrunjay. There is a there is a Chaumukji Janalaya of Shantinath Bhagwan, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, Heer Sarishwari Maharaja, him and or his Shishyas, I believe it was Vivek Harsha Vimal Harsh Ganiji. These Mahatmas have done Pratishtha during the Chaturmas of these Pratimas, and the lake is still very much present. The lake which specifies that the Pratishtha happened during Chaturmas here. Now, obviously, they would have factored in mind and gone at a time where there wasn't Nigod, etc. Because if there is Nigod, even they wouldn't have gone. But a blanket prohibition, even on sadhus, that, oh, in these 4 months you absolutely cannot go, is ridiculous. And it is the harmful effects of that are explicitly seen in our shasan. We see how many external forces are already keeping their eyes on places like Girnar and Shatrunjay and Sammet Shikhar. Now, for 4 months, when you restrict the Tirth Yatra for the most part, and where even Gacharipatis and Acharya Bhagwans are, they are indulgent in issuing such directions and enforcing them, and not and directing the Anandji Kalyanji Pedi in case of these states, not to supply boiled water for yatriks during these 4 months. It is ridiculous that people will be disincentivized from going there. And because of that, ultimately the Tirth is also going to suffer. Because we are essentially delegating the duties of our entire Tirth, Tirths rather, to pujaris who we are fine with. I mean, we're fine with them going, but we're hesitant when it comes to us going. So this is absolutely ridiculous and has no sense in the shasan at all, especially when there are when it defies logic, when the scriptures say otherwise, when there are explicit inscriptions available which state that Mahatmas have gone in the past. And forget that Sri Ajitnath Bhagwan and Sri Shantinath Bhagwan, as we know, have visited, have not only visited Shatrunjay Mahatirth, but they have spent an entire Chaturmas there. All 24 Tirthankars have visited Sri Shatrunjay Mahatirth. Neminath Bhagwan visited Shatrunjay Mahatirth when he had not taken Diksha. And that is how, and there's a long story behind this. And the story has a relation to why the Taleti at Shatrunjay is called Jai Taleti. It's a very interesting story, but we'll look at it some other time. So, in a way, even Neminath Bhagwan did come there. But barring them, we usually say 23 Tirthankar Paramatmas came to Shatrunjay. Of these, Ajitnath Bhagwan and Shantinath Bhagwan did a Chaturmas there. And if you look at Shatrunjay, Sri Shatrunjay Mahatmya Granth, which is authored by Dhaneshwar Srishwarji Maharaja, Dhaneshwar Sriji Maharaja clearly says that during their Chaturmas, during their Chaturmas, both the Tirthankar Paramatmas would give Deshnas for one prahar in the morning, like in the first prahar and the third prahar of the day, which is 6 hours on approximately every day in the Samavasaran. And this Samavasaran obviously was graced by all 12 Parshadas, which includes Dev and Devis of all four types, and animals, and most importantly, sadhus, sadhis, shravaks, and shravikas. So for animals and devs, if you can imagine, you can assume that okay, animals really could be living up there. Devtas could be, devtas can probably just fly in. But what about ordinary human beings? And because the deshna would happen, and we all know that Tirthankar is till the end of their lives, till they do anshan, they give deshna on a daily basis for 6 hours a day. It is obvious that Mahatmas, Sadhuji Bhagwans, Shravaks and Shravikas ascended Shatrunjay Mahatirth on a daily basis to listen to these Deshnas. Furthermore, even when the five Pandavas were about to attain Nirvana, it's a beautiful description of how, towards the end of their lives, they decide to. Okay, since this might not be a very popular story, uh, so in the Jain Mahabharat, when everything is more or less over, the Pandavas with Srimati Draupadi and Kunti, they decide that it's been a long while. We should do darshan of Neminath Bhagwan, and they've heard that Paramatma has now taken uh, Anshan, and Paramatma is now about to attain Nirvana very soon. So they leave from Pandu Mathura and they proceed towards Girnar. And by the time they reach a particular village, I forgot the name of the village, they get the news. And so, like any reasonable yatrik would, they take a pratigya that till we see Tirthankar Paramatma and we do his darshan and vandan, we will not consume any of the four types of ahar. And thus, doing Chovya Rupas successively, they proceed towards, they're on their way towards Girnar, and they realize that Paramatma has already attained Nirvana. They get the news, and now they realize, and now a person like me would think, okay, since he's not there, there's no point in really, practicing this niyam anymore. I can simply do my parna. But they were firm on their niyam, and they think to themselves, Michami Dukadam, the Pandavas wouldn't have left from Pandu Mathura because they'd already taken Diksha before. I forgot which region they proceeded from. So apologies for that. So they're on their way, and instead of breaking their niyam, they think, okay, uh, since Paramatma is already gone, and you know, our niyam cannot now be violated under any pretext whatsoever. Let us engage in samadhi ourselves and do anshan. And so they ascend Sri Shatrujay Mahatirth and they do an anshan for a month. And now, by the time that this 1 month is over, the Chaturmas has already kicked in, and an antar muhurt before their nirvan, these Mahatmas attain Keval Gyan. Upon attaining Keval Gyan, Devtas also get to know of this, and uh, Shri Yudhishthir Muni, who is the eldest brother, he gives a Deshna for an Antar Muhurt on Shatrunjay Mahatirth, and this Deshna is attended by Devtas and humans. The Shastras are very clear in specifying this, and after that, uh, all the Mahatmas attain Nirvana, and the Nirvana Mahotsav is celebrated by all of them. So there are ample, parts in this regard. Not much to think about. We get back to our main topic. So, ordinarily speaking, a Shravak should ensure that they avoid going in all 10 directions, the four main directions, the four sub directions, and the two directions, that is upwards and downwards. On a general basis, also, a Vratdhari Shravak takes the sixth Vrat, which limits the different directions he can go to. And like we've discussed earlier, all of these 12 vrats for a Shravak are not that difficult to practice. It's important to, just take them, even if they're initially very broad, because there is always still scope of reducing them. And but the laziness that we exercise in not taking these niyams and vrats after duly understanding them from Guru Bhagwans is what increases our pramad by leaps and bounds on a regular basis. Uh, even so, say, one would think there is, say, during the course of these 4 months, there is no possibility that I am going to travel outside of India. And I know this for a fact. One would again ask, what is the point in taking a niyam in the first place when I already know that, I'm not going to travel beyond X kilometers in the east or the west or the north and the south, or in the northwest, the northeast, the southwest, the southeast, or upwards and downwards. What is the point? So that again has to do with the akhandita of our paranam. Our paranam only becomes stronger when you take a niyam. And so even if there are things that you would not consume at all, even if there are fruits that you would not get in this particular season, in the rains, say when the rains are in full force, it's unlikely that you'll get mangoes. And it's one thing that mangoes are abhaksha right now, but otherwise speaking, there are several fruits that you wouldn't get. So in such a scenario, what is the point of taking a niyam for things that I wouldn't be taking at all? In this regard, the Shraddhavadikar Bhagwant, Sri Ratnashekar Saraswati Maharaja, he cites the example of uh, a beggar who took Diksha in Rajagruhi. This is mentioned in the Agams, and Rajagruhi, as we all know, is that most holy place where Shraman Bhagwan Mahavir Maharaja spent 14 Chaturmas. What Bhagwan saw in that city, only he knows. But he certainly saw something. He certainly saw immense potential in that city, because for a Tirthankar Paramatma who is endowed with all the splendor in the world, to to dedicate 14 chaturmas of his life to one city, he's definitely seen great potential in it. And of course, we it's palpable to a great extent, because we hear of so many great Acharya Bhagwan, Sadhu Sadhuri Bhagwan, Shravak Shravikas who took Diksha or who became extremely great Shravaks from the city of Rajagrihi. Be it Shrenik Maharaja, be it Jambu Swami, be it Sulsa Shravika, all of these are great examples. So, in this blessed city of Rajagrihi, a beggar took Diksha. And it's no surprise that a beggar took Diksha, uh, beggar who would otherwise have not attained Dharma, felt like taking Diksha, because that city, when it was at its peak during Paramatma's time and even after for a long while, it would just sound of Dharma everywhere. Every lane you went to, every house you knocked at, although there were Mithya Drashtis and Abhavya Jeeves even in that city, there was Kapila Dasi, there was Kalsaurik Kasai, even though all of these people, uh, you know, were present in the same city, Dharmatmas abound there. So this beggar took Diksha, and after he took Diksha, people started mocking him by saying, "Oh, look how much wealth he renounced and he took Diksha." And they would make fun of him and, taunt him and basically mock him, even in front of him and behind his back. This nature of people is never going to change, because when a wealthy person takes Diksha, they say, what is the point of accumulating so much wealth if he was going to renounce it anyway? And when a poor person takes Diksha, even in the time of Paramatma, this happened. So, if something of this sort happens now, one mustn't get agitated, one mustn't be surprised, or one mustn't feel any sort of irritation, because this is the very nature of lok. And this fickle minded nature of people at large is exactly what Sita ji asked Ramchandra ji to keep in mind when Ramchandra ji abandoned Sita. When after the entire war was over and Ramchandra ji, abandoned Sita altogether, And Sita ji gets to know this much later when she's left alone in the forest with by the minister. And the minister, with crying eyes, with tearful eyes, he asks Sita ji if there is any message that she could deliver. Sita ji very clearly says that, look, I only have one thing to say. Just because uh, of what people would say or what people would think, today Ramchandra ji has abandoned me. Ask him to keep in mind that tomorrow, just because people will say something, ask him not to abandon the dharma of Janeshwar Paramatma. And these powerful words are honestly an inspiration even in this day and age, because in the most critical conditions where Sita ji is pregnant with twins, and only she alone knows this, in such a scenario where your hormones are imbalanced and you have just recovered from a long period in Lanka, you have just come back to Ayodhya, you're physically and mentally exhausted, and suddenly you are told that you are being taken to Samet Shikhar for a Tirth Yatra, but in the middle of the way you're just abandoned in the forest. Obviously, any person would any person would suffer extremely poorly because of such happenings. So even in the middle of all of this, Sitaji Samyak Darshan, even though she fainted before, Sitaji Samyak Darshan helped her recover not only physically but also mentally, and she was very firm when she said this. And she wouldn't have cared less for what Ramchandra ji did, but she was so concerned about the spiritual welfare of her husband. So it's something to keep in mind. Even in Gyan Sar, Upadhyay Yashwadhari Maharaja says that there are countless people that are going to, that basically swim with the flow. So if a particular river is going in a particular direction, there are countless people that are going to flow in that direction. But there is only one mighty person who dares to go in the opposite direction, the direction opposite to the current. And in this Kali Yuga, the currents are stronger than ever. But Upajari Bhagwan says that that one person who has the resolution, the resolve, and the might to go in the opposite direction, even when people are saying something completely different, that one person is who I call a Muni. It's a very beautiful uh, shlok in the Lok Sangya Tyag Ashtak of Gyan Sar. But yes, we come to our story. These people mock the beggar by saying, "Oh, look, he renounced so much wealth and he took Diksha." And the Ji was Bhadrik, and uh, he was disturbed by this, and he realized that because of this, even the dharma is getting criticized. So he tells Sudarma Samiji Maharaja that, I want to do vihar from here. And Abhay Kumar Mantri, the minister of Shrenik Maharaja, and his son, and whose name we mention during, uh, whose name we write down during the days of Diwali, although that is extremely not in accordance with the scriptures. For his wit, for his wisdom, we say Abhay Kumar Jevi Buddhi Hojo. Uh, so such a person who was endowed with unnecessary, with extraordinary parinamiki buddhi and outpadaki buddhi. Abhay Kumar ji hears of this and he tells the Mahatmas that you give me a while, don't do vihar just yet. And in the middle of Rajagruhi, at an intersection where four roads, uh, what is against the scriptures, Srinivas bhai? Yeah, so for a Shravak, Diwali is nothing else but the Nirvan Kalyanak of Sri Mahavir Swami Maharaja. It is, so of the five Kalyanaks, generally speaking, from the point of view of how much refinement is attained at the occurrence of that particular Kalyanak in a Tirthankar's life, Nirvan Kalyanak is where Paramatma actually becomes Siddh, Buddh, Mukt, Niranjan, Nirakar. And as such, it is one of the most or the most significant happening in a Tirthankar's life. And for us, it is the greatest Alamban ever. And so, of all Kalyanaks, one can say that the Nirvan Kalyanak is the most important from one perspective. And similarly, one can also say that, you know, of all the 24 Paramatmas, the Upkar of Maharasami Bhagwan is the most important in that sense. He is also the most important Paramatma for us. So, keeping that in mind, Diwali is basically the greatest Kalyanak for a particular, for a particular Aradhak. And if you listen to the beautiful shloks regarding Nirvan Kalyanak that are mentioned, that are recited by Mahatmas during the Anjan Chalaka Vidhi, the Panch Kalyanak Vidhi of, of breathing life into Paramatma, those shloks are also so beautiful. So there is a particular shlok that goes like this: सर्वापाय व्यपाय दधिगत विमल ज्ञानमानंद सारम योगींद्र ध्येयमग्र्यम त्रिभुवनमहितं यत्तथा व्यक्तरूपं नीरन्ध्रं दर्शनाद्यं शिवम शिवहरं छिन्न संसार पाशं चिन्ते संचिन्तयामि प्रकटम विकटम मुक्तिकान्ता सुकान्तं. These shloks, these shloks among others, they're sung in various chants during the Panchkaryanak Vidhi of uh, for Pratima, wherein the bhav of the shlok goes like this. So one says, Sarva Paya Vyapaya. All the apais, all the hindrances, all the evils, all the obstacles have been destroyed by this person. This person has attained Nirmal, that is free from all impurities, Nirmal Keval Gyan. They have attained a state of Param Anand, because after attaining nirvana, Paramatma does not even have to bear the bear the physical suffering that he otherwise would have to. Paramatma becomes yogindra dhyeya magryam, for not only for yogis but yogindras, for even for those who are the kings of yogis. So even for them, even for the supreme yogis, Paramatma now becomes the object of focus, the object of dhyan, because now Paramatma has reached a state of complete perfection, inward as well as outward. And they've attained the topmost position in the world, geographically as well as spiritually. Tribhuvana Mahitam, the entire three worlds congregate to worship them. All the three worlds worship Arihant Paramatma as well. But after attaining the Siddha Avastha, Paramatma's grade obviously reaches another level altogether, because even the four aghati karmas are destroyed. And then Yat Tatha Vyakta Rupam. Paramatma has attained his original identity now. Nirandram Darshanadhyam. The Paramatma has completely destroyed all possible ways for ashrav. Because even as Keval Gyanis, there is Yog Pratyayik Bandh. So because of Man Vachan Kaya Yog, there is very trivial karma bandh that happens in one samay, and the next samay it goes away. So now even that is gone. And Paramatma is now endowed with Samyak Darshanyan Charitra he always had, but now the Samyak Charitra that Paramatma has is in the form of being in his own Swabhav. Shivama Shivaharam. Paramatma himself not only becomes the source of extreme welfare, but he also becomes that one identity who is capable enough of taking away everything that is hindering your spiritual welfare. Chinna Sansara Pasham. Paramatma has now severed all the all the bonds of sansar. And then in the last the last charan of the shlok says, Chitte Sanchintayami Prakatam Vikatam Mukti Kanta Sukantam. So in this way, Paramatma, who is endowed with these adjectives, with these qualities, who is the spouse of the woman named Mukti, and this Mukti is manifest. She's gentle, she's calm. So, and Paramatma is now obviously metaphorically married to her. I contemplate, I meditate on the Swarup of this Paramatma. Such beautiful words, if you actually think about them. And even on a daily basis, Shravaks, even while doing puja, we do the dhyan of different avasthas of Paramatma, right from his birth, starting with the Abhishek Vidhi to the time of his Nirvan. And in this way, we contemplate upon the Panch Kalyanak every day. And even in Granths like Shraddha Vidhi, the importance of Kalyanaks is measured to be as important as Parvatithis. So, keeping all of this in mind, the importance of Diwali is immeasurable. There is no greater Kalyanak than Diwali. If you look at it one way, there are hundreds of Jains who will who we get holidays for Mahavir Janma Kalyanak, and there are hundreds of Jains who will, even those who otherwise aren't very active, who will come down on the streets on that day to perhaps partake in the Varghwada of Paramatma, the Rath Yatra on occasion of Mahavir Janma Kalyanak. But during Diwali, how many of us actually remember Paramatma's Upkar and the 16 prahars of Deshna that Paramatma continuously gave, only to ensure that even while going, he leaves us with a very important message. So, if a Shravak were to keep all of this in mind, and then after having understood the importance of how extremely important and great this Maha Kalyanak is, it is only natural that a Shravak would want to know how do the scriptures prescribe the Aradhana of Diwali. And on seeing the scriptures, we see that a Shravak, if he has the power, he naturally would take paushad for those 2 days, do Chovyar Chhat. And this perhaps occurred to me very late, but back in 2021, when some of us, Arpit Bhai, Bhavya, Yash Bhai from our group, couple of us, when we went to the Kalyana Bhumis in the east, and during the last leg of our yatra, when we were in Pavapuri, there were only three of us left, and we were still contemplating as to whether I should be doing Divya Upvas or Chavya Upvas. And at that particular point in time, there was possibly no issue in having done either, but this is just Pramad. And at that particular point in time, a very learned and aged Shrav from Kolkata happened to meet me, and I asked him, Uncle, what are you doing tomorrow? Tivyar Upvas or Chavya Upvas? And he says, how can you even think of doing Tivyar Upvas when Paramatma himself did not have water for those 2 days, and with him, the entire Sangh that was present in Paramatma's Samavasaran, all of them did Chavya Upvas too, because all of them were continuously present for 16 prahars in the Samavasaran. So the entire Sangh did this stuff with Paramatma. And those words just struck with me so well. It's actually something to think about. How can one eat when our father, during the time of his departure, did this stuff, and the Sangh back then also partook in this stuff with him? So if you keep all of this in mind, one naturally would want to do all four types of paushad and leave all four types of ahar. And when you do all of this, and in the event that you don't do paushad, there are several kriyas that you could otherwise partake in, which includes, everything from doing Trikal Puja at least on those days, doing Mahapujas, uh, taking a brilliant and Shasan Prabhavak Rath Yatra of Paramatma on occasion of Diwali, uh, listening to the last Deshna of Paramatma from Guru Bhagwans, listening to the Faladesh of the 10 Sapnas that King Punyapal saw during those days. And when you do all of this, how can it possibly happen that you have the time to do something so trivial? Now that is one thing, because even at night you're going to be doing job. That's one thing. Now say you somehow have time, though, and this should have actually been number one. What is the logic or the rationale in doing this? Shalabhadraji Jevi Ruddhi Hojo. May I have the wealth, the prosperity of Shalabhadraji. May I have the punya of Kaivanna Sheth. The Saubhagya of Kaivanna Sheth. May I have the buddhi of Abhay Kumar. May I have the strength of Bahubali. What is the point in all of this? Sure, these are good qualities, and those Mahatmas, those Mahapurush, they used it for optimum purposes, because of which they were able to attain their Atma Kalyan, because their prosperity, their wisdom, their strength, even physical strength, all of this happened to be for their karma nijra. But our eyesight, our vision is obviously not at nirjara. Our vision is only at attaining tuch punya bandh, by which we can make more money, mint more money, live a comfortable life, and have nothing to do with dharma altogether. So it's stupid to even think that uh, the scriptures allow this. But what is more stupid is when Mahatmas forget this altogether, and Mahatmas give out murats to do Lakshmi Pujan and Chopra Pujan and Saraswati Pujan during the days of Diwali. Mahatma's job during the days of Diwali is to motivate Shravaks to give up their sansar at least for those 2 days, and not only logically but also in mere and sheer remembrance of the upkar that Paramatma did even while going away. So yeah, such rituals have no place in the Ren. But if one really wanted to write something like that, in to remember, and basically because the day after Diwali is the day of New Year, they can certainly take out time to write things from a positive angle, from a angle that would benefit them spiritually. Instead of asking merely for labdhi of Gautam Sami, they could instead say, "May I attain the Vinay gun of Gautam Sami Maharaja?" And instead of asking for the mere intelligence of Abhay Kumar, which they would generally use, and they generally would want it, in terms of their business acumen, so that they can apply their intelligence and succeed in their worldly life. How about they instead asked for the margast buddhi that Abhay Kumar had? In this example, we see that Abhay Kumar he has amazing intelligence, but Abhay Kumarji, his intelligence is not something that he's using, or it's not something that ought to be applied for worldly purposes, but rather in the marg of dharma, to uplift his own self and to uplift others. And it's because of this intelligence and the good use of this intelligence that Abhay Kumarji did, that in that very birth he practiced Diksha so well that he attained the highest Devlok possible, Shri Sarvarth Siddh Viman, which has the highest level of materialistic comfort in this world, and after which and any person who goes there is always Ekavatari. So after descending from there, he is bound to attain moksha in the next birth. So whether or not such things are tenable in the Shasan can be understood. Now coming back to our story, Abhay Kumarji in Rajagruhi, at an intersection of crossroads, using all his wealth, his wealth to the tune of 3 crore Sona Mohors. So he creates a pile of these 3 crore gold mohors, and after creating a heap, he calls everyone, like, he has an announcement made in the city that, look, I'm ready to give this wealth away to anyone, but there are 3 conditions. One is that you cannot use water from any sources like wells, ponds, lakes, etc. That is Sachit water. Two is you cannot use fire, and three is you cannot touch a woman, that is a person of the opposite sex. If you take a lifetime resolution to abstain from these three altogether, then I'll give it to you. To anyone who takes this resolution. A lot of people thought about it, but ultimately everyone considered that, see, it's easy to give these 3 crore gold mohors away, but it's very difficult to give these three things away. And that's when Abhay Kumar Mantri, he catches hold of the people and he says that, you foolish people, how dare you make fun of this Dramak Muni, this Mahatma who was a beggar earlier? Because having renounced these three things, which are the essence of Sansar, he has essentially renounced something that is far, far greater than the entire, than wealth so huge. And having understood that, the people of Rajagrihi, they sought Shamayashna from the Dramak Muni. And in this way, the Shraddha also says that in such a way, even if you don't have something in your possession and you think that you're not going to consume it in whatever way, you should certainly do tyag of that. A person who does not do it lives the life of an animal. And the Shraddhavadikar, to substantiate his point further, he says that Bhartruhari, who is not a Jain saint, but a saint in one of the Hindu philosophies, one of the Indic philosophies, uh, Bhartruhari, his story is also amazing. And like we have the Vairagya Shatak in the Jain Shasan, Bhartruhari also composed a Vairagya Shatak, that is 100 verses which inculcate vairagya in a particular person. This Bhartruhari ji also, and Bhartruhari, although a lot of his teachings were he hadn't attained the mark fully, one can definitely look at his life, look at his teachings, and say that he was very close perhaps to attaining the true mark. And he also seems to have had the qualities of a marganusari person. So this Bhartruhari writes that we we often forgave people, but when people insulted us, we could not bear it. We you know those comforts that we could have easily renounced, or we could have been satisfied with, we did not give them up. In the course of our routine lives, for work or for whatsoever reason, we actually endured so much heat. We endured the bravest, the worst of storms. We endured uh, we endured the absence of sunlight as well, or when there was extreme sunlight as well, we endured it. But we did not go out of our way to take a niyam to engage in tap. Day and night we spent in thinking about how much money we could have made, but we did not engage in the various steps of yoga to contemplate on moksha. And in this way, everything that a muni does, all the suffering that a muni suffers uh, physically, we actually have endured all of this. And this is very true for all of our lives as well. We have actually endured all of this, and perhaps even much more. But the nirjara that the Muni Bhagwant attains by enduring all of these things by way of abhigrahas, we failed to extract the benefit from them by not taking these niyams. And similarly, uh, I mean, we can also see this in terms of how many people do they they're given to the fad and they practice one meal a day. Of course, the people do munch on things here and there, but say someone only eats one meal a day without taking the pachakhand of eating not more than one meal a day, they are obviously not going to reap the benefit of doing tyag of food for the remainder of the time. And those who take pachakhand of ekashna and do ekashna every day, Anumodna again, Manoj Bhai, uh, those people obviously are going to benefit from the same tap. And this is also mentioned in Shraddhavadi. To, to cite further in this example, the concept of, the story of Vankachul. And it's a famous story wherein Vankachul took three different niyams, three or four, I believe, different niyams, which were very random things that would have never happened in his life. But even though he took these niyams, because of his Guru Bhagwant, he ended up, dying a good death, and he went to Devlok, even after leading an otherwise heavily sinful life. So, similarly, there's other niyams too that one can take, and these include anything from doing Trikal Puja, which a Shravak should ordinarily always do, but if not on a daily basis, at least every day during Chaturmas or during a fortnight or during Parvatitis, at least one should take the niyam to do Trikal Puja, or at least two times. Uh, doing Dev Vandan, doing puja of and or Vandan to all jinn bims in a particular derasar, even the tiniest ones. Uh, I remember the example of Sri Ramchandra Sevashri Maharaja when he spent when he did Navanu of Shatrunjay twice in his life, and during the course of this Navanu, he ensured that he gave three Khamasamanas to each of the Jin Pratimas present on Shatrunjay Mahatirth. Obviously, the number goes in thousands and thousands of Pratimas, but he ensured that even the smallest Pratima made of metal too, he did he did Vandan to those pratimas by way of three Khamasamnas. So that is Darshan Shuddhi in its own right. Doing Snatra Mahotsav, Mahapuja, Prabhavna, because the days of Paryushan also fall in the Chaturmas. So, doing Dvadashavarth Vandan to Guru Bhagwans, doing Vandan to all Sadhu Bhagwans, doing Kausag of Logas, say of 24 Logas, of 10 Logas, 12 Logas. Because when we go to the Atichar that a Shravak, that a Shravak could incur in his life, one of the statements that is mentioned there is that because of a pramad, we did not do Kausag of 10 or 20 or such Logas. And this means that a Shravak, whenever he has the time, he engages in Kausag of Logas, etc., for as long as he can, to ensure that he does Vishesh Karma Nirjara. Similarly, uh, so that's one aspect of darshan shuddhi, and uh, in terms of doing one and two dev and guru bhagwans. Another aspect is studying. As we all know, chaturmas has a deep connection with mahatmas, because mahatmas stay in one place during chaturmas. So for those who are blessed to have mahatmas in their areas, and obviously even those who do not, uh, one should maximize this opportunity in terms of how much they can learn, because the vicinity of Mahatmas is essential to learning. Shravaks can never be a replacement for Mahatmas. Gyan that comes from Guru Bhagwans alone, because that Gyan, like we've seen even in Panchasutra, is blended with Parinati. It comes with experience, which is why for describing the nature of a true Gyani, which is a true Muni, Upadhyaya Yashwarji Maharaja in the Gnayansar again, in his Gnan Ashtak, he writes, Majjat Yagya Kila Gyane, Vishta Yameva Shukara, Gyani Nimajjate Gyane, Marala Eva Manase. It's a beautiful comparison. He says that the Agnani person, uh, who doesn't have Samyak Gyan whatsoever, he is bound to be stuck in thoughts, or in a state of mind which is replete with ignorance. So the bhav that he has, or because the mind is something that he practically cannot stop, the only way to fix it is by engaging the mind in positive thoughts and thoughts which would benefit us. And that is in short to attain a positive, a good, a spiritually better state of mind. And a gnani person cannot do this. And Upadhyaya Bhagwan says that just like a pig is always rolling around in vishta, that is in excreta, just like a pig is always moving or covered in filth, and he likes being in filth. It's not like he dislikes it too. He thinks that there's happiness here. Similarly, the agyani person, he sees happiness in the padarths of this world, in everything that is paudgalic, because he does not have the vision, the vivek, to understand that this is essentially, for the lack of better words, shit. It's not going to benefit me at all. And in fact, I'm disgracing myself with this. But the nature of an agyani person is to be blind. So in the second half of the shlok, Upadhyaya Bhagavan says, just on the other hand, uh, Gyani nimajjate gyane marala eva manase. Just like a swan is fluttering around in the lake Mansarovar, the mystical lake, and we often use this description to, to basically portray a very majestic image of a beautiful stainless swan who is gently just enjoying in the waters of Mansarovar. Similarly, a Gyani Mahatma is always immersed in Gyan, that is, he's always immersed in his own Atma. Truly, Mahatmas are, they can only be engaged in one of the two things. One is their own self, or the other is Paramatma. There is no third place that their mind is stuck. And if you look at these two also, from the Nishchayana, both of them are the same thing. So such Muni Bhagwans are something in their own right. They're wonderful. And learning from them is essential for us. I recall the Tika of Sri Lankacharya Bhagwant on Sri Acharang Sutra in the sixth Adhyayan of Acharang Sutra, which is Dhut Adhyayan. Uh, Sri Lankacharya Ji Maharaja, he talks about how there are two types of blind people in this world. Some people are physically blind, whereas some people are blind by mithyatva. And this blindness comes because there is a lack of vivek. So Sri Lankacharya Ji writes that there are only two types of pure vision in this world. One is to become viveki yourself, that is to have the understanding or the knowledge to distinguish between right and wrong, to see what is going to benefit me in the future versus what is going to harm me in the future, if not immediately. And if you cannot make the decision for yourself, and truly we cannot, the second option that Sri Lankacharya Ji Bhagwan says is to accept the nishra, the refuge of those who have that pure vision in them. And this is what learning is. So one should take niyams, that at least once in a week, I will undertake those Swadhyay of so and so Granth from Guru Bhagwans. And in the absence of Guru Bhagwans, I will undertake the Swadhyay of so and so Granths by myself, which are permitted by my Guru Bhagwans if they're not physically around me. Practicing Brahmacharya, uh, having only Achit water, and this benefits this benefits us in double ways. We all know that, because if we decide to have Achit water only, then there is never going to be a shortage of Achit water at our place. And so for that reason, if a Mahatma were to suddenly come home for Gochri, we would also get the love of offering Achit water to them. And secondly, if a sadharmik who is doing tap, etc., and because most people do tap during Chaturmas, were to come home, we would also attain the love of offering water to them. Because today, say, it might be easier to find gochri in certain areas, but finding achit water gets very difficult, and then Mahatmas have to resort to practices which are not generally permitted. So all of these problems could actually be solved if we actually, take some initiative and mend our lifestyle. Similarly, giving up Sachit altogether, and this reminds us of how Kumarpal Maharaja had taken niyams for his entire life that he wouldn't have any achit food altogether. The only any sachit food at all. The only sachit food that he had during Chaturmas was pan, nagarvel pan. So he took also niyams such as these, and all abhaksha food, which is generally also prohibited during, for our lifetimes. Such food should also not be eaten in chaturmas if someone were to eat them, and especially leafy vegetables, like cabbage or things such as papad, which catch moisture very easily and which could thus lead to jeevotpatti. All of these things should be avoided. Dates, dates, um, dried grapes for whatsoever reason, things that could catch insects very easily, all of these things, or anything that could essentially attract mold or insects or anything of that sort. Even when you're consuming them for medicinal purposes, you should ensure that you look at them very minutely, introspect them, and do all of those things. Similarly, things that are again otherwise forbidden, such as plowing the earth, coloring your clothes, using vehicles, etc., like we discussed earlier, all of these things should also be avoided as much as possible. And as much stuff as we can, because most of us have the fortune of attaining guru nishra during these months, we should engage in. Similarly, Purvacharya Bhagwans have even classified that, look, there are five types of achar: Jnanachar, Darshanachar, Charitrachar, Tapachar, and Viryachar. So, depending on all of these five achars and depending on your strength, you can take different, niyams to better your life, at least for this Chaturmas. So, in response to Shreyans's question, wherein he says that I prepare Achit water thinking that a Mahatma may visit and I could get love, will be considered Shuddha Gochri. No, it wouldn't be in ordinary circumstances, because in Bhagavati Sutra, it is said that a person who prepares ahar keeping in mind sadhu bhagwans, and he, offers them food, like, uh, basically offers them food, uh, doshit food, in ordinary circumstances, he leads to the bandh of Alp Ayushya and Neech Gotra Karma. So you obviously shouldn't. Achit water is to be consumed for your own self, because consuming Sachit water makes our paranam very, very uncompassionate, because boiling water and knowing that there is no jeev present in them versus having unboiled water, where jiva still living in that water, apka hai jeev, there is a lot of parinati bhed. And so once you understand that, you would naturally want to have achit water. That's why you would have achit water. And thus, if Mahatmas come and you get the love of that, that's just something that happens as a byproduct. Obviously, it's a great love, but one cannot prepare achit water keeping them in mind. So yeah, so taking niyams of Gyan, Darshan, Charitrachar, Tapachar, and Viryachar, avoiding vigais, etc., to the extent possible. All of these things should be kept in mind. The scriptures, they also talk of an example wherein in the city called Kshemapuri, there was a merchant named Suvrat Sheth, and this particular person, he took several niyams Yatha Shakti from his Guru Bhagwant during the Chaumasa. And seeing his master follow so many niyams, the servant who was employed in his service, he also decided that okay, for at least for the Chaturmas, I'm not going to do Ratri Bhojan. I won't consume the four Mahavigais, that is, honey, butter, meat, alcohol, etc. And this servant, he died, and after dying, this jeev, because of the punya ban that he accrued just by undertaking niyams for this one Chadurmas, he became a prince. And Suvrat Sheth, the guy whose service he was in, he became a very prosperous devta. And in the future, in the next birth, this devta, essentially helped the prince attain two kingdoms, and he became the king of two kingdoms. And after hearing all of this from an Avdigyani Mahatma, he, the Rajkumar, the prince, he practices even more niyams, and he ultimately went to Devlok. And from Devlok, he will go to Mahavidya Kshetra and attain moksha there. So, keeping all of these things in mind, it's important to understand that we make the most of just this Chaturmas. A lot of us have uh, spent countless Chaturmas, more than 20 to 30 Chaturmas of our lives, not knowing what to do, whiling time away, traveling here and there, and we continue to do so without realizing that the clock is ticking. Vairagya Shatak, in the second Gatha only, it says, Ajam Kalam Parampararim, Purisa Chintanti Atha Sampatim, Anjali Gayam Vatoyam, Galanta Maumna Pinchanti. So, uh, the very common proverb that we hear, Kal kare so aaj kar, aaj kare so ab. The same thing was said thousands of years ago in Vairagya Shatak, where it says, instead of doing it, day after tomorrow, uh, so the man, in the second gatha, it says that the man thinks I'll do it later today or tomorrow or day after. Ajam kalam parampararam purisa chintanti yatha sampatyam. He says that, okay, right now, let me attain some more wealth. Let me, expand my practice, my business, and then perhaps I'll come back to dharma eventually. Anjali gayam vatoyam galanta mauna pichanti. Uh, Imagine having water in your cupped palms. It's going to be a matter of few seconds before all the water just drains, it just falls down from your palms, even though they are cupped. Similarly, Ayush is also very chanchal. It's flowing, it's still flowing as we speak. We don't know when we will extinguish it. We don't know if we will get all of these opportunities again. And thus, keeping all of this in mind, we've taken a departure from the usual Panchasutra Swadhyay to remind each of us present here that this Chaturmas, this period of 4 months, is again a great opportunity to practice Dharma Aradhana. And thus, by imbibing the Dharma of Sri Janeshwar Bhagwans, maybe there'll be some opportunity in one of these 4 months in the Nishra of Guru Bhagwans, or while doing some Aradhana, that we will find that one moment that really increases our Samveg and Nirved, refines our Samyak Darshan Jnana Charitra, and ultimately helps us in attaining moksha. If there is anything that I have said against Janagnya, Michhami Dukadam, it's just a reminder that uh, today, so exactly a fortnight ago, on Ashad Sud Atham, 6 days before the Chaturmas began, and back then, perhaps a week before the Chaturmas began, uh, Parshanath Bhagwan, the 23rd Tirthankar Paramatma, along with 33 Uttam Mahatmas, ascended Sri Sammet Shikharji, and on the highest peak of Sammet Shikharji, which is the highest peak of Jharkhand state today, the Parasnath Took of Parasnath Hill, the Swarnabhadra Took, if I remember the name correctly, Paramatma took an unshan of 1 month a fortnight ago. So one fortnight remains. Today's Ashad Vad Atham. And on Shravan Sud Atham, that is 14, 15 days from now, Paramatma attained moksha. So let's also keep in mind that we do Aradhana of this particular Kalyanak when it comes. There is gross negligence when it comes to Kalyanaks in today's generation. We, for once, because our families are more or less dharmic, we remember when there are tithis, and we abstain from eating linotri, etc. And thus there is always, even if we don't do much, we remember it's a tithi today. But when there is a kalyana, we don't even blink our mind to think, to just pause and think for 1 hour. Oh, imagine the entire process of Paramatma climbing that hill, giving away, stopping his deshna for an entire month now. And there are thousands and millions and of devtas, because we know that until Paramatma attains Nirvan, from the time that he attains Keval Gyan, there are at least a minimum of 1 crore devtas surrounding Paramatma. So imagine that scene where the devtas earlier, they would be together, and Paramatma, would be giving Deshna 6 hours a day and doing so much upkar on everyone. Now things have taken a turn, and Paramatma with his 33 Mahatmas, and they're doing Anshan. Everyone is merely doing darshan of Paramatma and these 33 sadhu bhagwans. And by doing darshan also, they are accruing immense karma nirjara. And ultimately, there comes the day of Shravan Sud Atham, where Paramatma does nirod. He restrains the man, vachan, kaya in its sukshma and badar forms. He does Shaileshi Karan. He he also undergoes the process of samudghat, wherein Paramatma's atma comes out of it comes out of his body and expands to take the size of the entire 14 Rajlok. All of these wonderful things happen, and within a matter of only 8 samays, the atma is back in its body. Paramatma attains the third leg of Shukla Dhyan. Paramatma eventually attains the fourth leg of Shukla Dhyan. And in the time that it takes to pronounce the 5 Rasvakshars, that is E, U, Ru, Ru, Paramatma's Atma shoots up from his body and attains the Shashvat, seat above Siddhashila in the form of moksha, in terms of dravya and like in terms of kshetra and bhav both. So all of these things, whatever incidents are relevant to that particular Kalyanak, at least during Chaturmas, I humbly request each of you to make ample use of grunts like Trishashi Shalaka Purush. And if it's difficult to, read the entire grunts in one like continuously every day, at least when that Kalyanak comes up, pick the grunt up, read the relevant portions of that particular Paramatma's, that particular Kalyanak, and imbibe yourself with that bhav. Do jap of that particular pad, and wish when will those Kalyanaks actually bring Tatvik Kalyan in my life. So please keep all of this in mind. And I hope I also take some lessons from all of this. And with this, we conclude. Michan, there's one message that was here. So, no, so Shreyan, so you say that when you prepared Achit water for yourself and Mahatma came and you got love, then you have to prepare water for yourself again. Uh, so now understand then that Mahatmas generally refrain from taking all of a particular food item or water or any liquid as the case may be, from a householder, because they know that if I were to take all of it, then the householder will have to cook that food or water or drink for himself again, which will lead to unnecessary viradhana. So, Mahatmas, as a matter of practice, also, I'm sure everyone has seen this, they generally, and when I say generally, please keep in mind that there are upwards to all of this. They generally avoid taking the full quantity of any particular object. Now, in certain scenarios where they take it, it must be for a good reason. So, in such a case, the mark for us as Shravaks is not to engage in hinsa again and go in the, engage in the preparation of that food or water, but rather to just think about what a great love we got, and ensure that we do not engage in cooking again, because by way of doing that we are ultimately mm, you know bringing a dosh in the grocery that Mahatma is going to consume. So for us, we should only think about the great love that we've got, and not basically engage in any cooking or preparation of food or drink again. And anyway, such situations are very rare in occurrence, because most Mahatmas will very firmly say that no, I won't take all of this. Don't do that, especially when it comes to things as important as water, because they know that the Shravak will end up preparing a chit water for himself. So in the rare occurrence when it does happen, we simply ought to endure it. As simple as that. But yes, if there's any other questions, please put them forth. Because ghee, the way ghee is prepared, it does not lead to ghee as a substance does not contain innumerable Bendriya Jeev. But makhan that is prepared, the way it is prepared from buttermilk, so that butter which is extracted from buttermilk, for as long as it is part of the buttermilk, okay, there are no Jeev in it. But as soon as you extract the butter from the buttermilk, that is, you take it out of the volume of buttermilk, that butter starts producing innumerable Bendriya Jeev. And that's why there is extreme hinsa involved in that. Not only Dravya hinsa, but the rationale behind Mahavega is also that all of these are intoxicating substances. So the mental influence that they have is also very large, comparing ghee and butter. So while ghee is a vigai, it is still a bhaksha vigai. It is not abhaksha. Although of course it has its own mental detriments, spiritual detriments. But yes, so that. All right, if there's any other questions, please let me know. Uh, we've taken a little more time, so my sincere apologies for that. But yes, if there's none, we'll uh, end our Swadhyay for today. Thank you for coming, and pranam.
Thank you.
Pranam, Pashwe. Thank you.